I do think that's a good question, because I do think when you ask about truth, instead of being a question about what truth is, oftentimes it becomes an epistemological question. How do you know truth? So, in that regard, books are an important part of how we know truth. We don't know truth in the abstract. We don't know truth in isolation. We know truth in community. And so books are a
form of community.
A form of community. I love Chesterton's quote where he says that tradition is the democracy of the dead. So maybe you can adapt that for the library. Like a library is the... there's an opportunity there to engage with people who've gone before us and live in other cultures and other places and relate to their wisdom. Okay, well, also, I think as Christians we believe that truth is a person, ultimately, not a set of facts or some kind of content, right? We believe that Christ is truth. So, I think the danger at an educational institution is that we think we can know truth in some sort of abstracted context. If I just learn this book, or if I learn this set of material, if I learn this data, then I'll know truth and I'll be able to control it, I'll be able to use it to my ends. So I think it's really important for Christians to think about truth as an ongoing process or relationship, a development, not something that we ever end. I mean, Christ says that this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and your Son whom you sent. So that's eternity, just knowing God. So if we understand the human person not as, if we understand ourselves as humans, let me back up. You see where I'm going with this? That truth is not something we know, but somebody we relate to.
It's more that it's a process.
It's a process.
That truth is a process,
Yeah.
and like your earlier comment, that truth is community.
Yeah.
And it's a relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more than just, you'll never arrive just, I have truth.
Yeah.
I've cornered the market on truth. You'll never just arrive to that point. Truth is a process. It's an ongoing thing. Much like our relationship with Christ, we strive to be more and more Christ-like, but we're never going to arrive on earth.
And our relationship with Christ is mediated through his body, which is the church, which is the community of which we are a part. So, yeah, it's hard work.
See, sometimes I think, even when I've thought through some of my responses to this, I'm like, I'm thinking of knowledge. It's easy to equate truth with knowledge.
Right.
Yeah. And, I mean, if we sit down and think about it, we all would make a very clear distinction between the two.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes easier to think of truth as more of knowing things and knowledge. And
here's an example I like about this. So, if somebody says, I know how to use a lawnmower, or I know the truth about my lawnmower, and I asked them about this more, and they said, well, I know what color it is, I know where the parts came from, I know how much it weighs, I know the chemical composition of the blade. I would say they don't really know how to use a lawnmower. They know some things, some facts, some knowledge about the lawnmower, but they don't know the truth of the lawnmower. But if I use my lawnmower to cut my lawn, then I know how to use a lawnmower. So it's to sort of know how, and relating to reality, knowing how to use the lawnmower to relate to reality, I think is is more analogous to truth than knowing facts about my lawnmower. And as Christians, we might push it further and say, knowing the ultimate truth about the lawnmower would be to know how to use the lawnmower to serve others, to maybe mow the widow's yard, or to be able to use it in love. So I think that distinction between knowledge and truth is really important, because if we think about truth as just knowledge, then we're more likely to try to commodify it, to try to use it to gain power, rather than to relate to truth and try to come into a closer relationship with truth. Because even the Hebrew word, back to the Hebrews, even the Hebrew word for know doesn't mean sort of have knowledge. It means to relate with. We use the word to know God. Adam knew Eve, and they bore a son. It's not a sort of content knowledge. It's a matter of relationship. So I like the distinction between knowledge and truth.
But I think one of the biggest threats to the truth is, and I'll use politics as an example, but the bifurcation of news media and political conversation, just as an example, where you have your Fox News, Tea Party, and then you have, what was the other side, the protest movement?
Occupy Wall Street.
The Occupy movement. So you have these very disparate groups, and neither of them are talking to each other, and there's never going to be a conversation. If you watch Fox News, you're just going there because that's what you want to hear.
It's confirmation bias.
Yeah,
No.
and I think that's probably one of the greatest threats to truth, where when you're forced, getting back to your point of community, when you're forced to interact with people, then you're forced to confront maybe different perspectives on truth or different realities that people have. In regards, if we want to use the political communication, an issue or a political statement or position, that would extend to all walks of life. But I think the Fox News political communication and discourse is an easy example.
And maybe this comes back to your prognostication about what's going to happen in the digital age, because I think the digital age makes so much information available that it can be overwhelming. We start to realize, yikes, truth is infinitely complex. These situations are infinitely complex, which as Christians we already knew, right? That the universe is infinite and infinitely meaningful. But maybe the temptation then is to bunker down and hang out with people like us who just reinforce what we already believe, so that we can make sense of the universe without having to really wrestle with complexity of these issues. And so if that's the greatest threat, then maybe the response should be to engage with those who are different from us and who really challenge our beliefs. And not just on a superficial level, but really, read people, talk to people who are different from us and who